Subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Hello everybody and welcome to yet another episode of Daydreamers with Himika. My guest today has been in the news most recently for being at the helm of the most successful social media platform ever, TikTok, for India, Middle East, South Asia, Africa and Turkey. He has had similar, strongly successful leadership stints in major media conglomerates like Viacom 18, Times Network, UTV and Walt Disney to just name a few. His career talks about successful transformations, long-term vision, and innovation that drives maximum growth. Of late, he has also been advising startups and mentoring them. So while he gets ready for his next big exciting venture, while he gets ready for his next exciting venture, we are so thrilled to have him on our show. So Nikhil, welcome to Daydreamers with Himika.
Himika, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you.
So Nikhil, my first question of course starts with the fact that you have been in the content space for so long, you have literally seen the transformation of it. So while there have been digital players and television players, my question is about the nature of content. How have you seen that transform over a period of years? If you could just tell me about what is the demand of the Indian content consumer today?
Well, it's a very loaded question. I think from what I have experienced right from the time I began my career in the 2 decades, is one thing in common is Indians are driven by emotion, and that goes to all sorts of content successes that you've seen, whether it's in films, whether it's in television, whether it's in web series. There's a great amount of high emotion getting driven, coupled with drama and whatever else the genre is. You will always find, even in an action film, a serious amount of emotion involved. Right, so I think that is a key factor at a base level. Secondly, I think fundamentally all the shows or TV series or web series or films that do well essentially are predominantly women finding their space in a patriarchal society. Right? I think it's a good thing that there's a portrayal of the woman winning and empowering and inspiring so many people. But I think it's time that we move on beyond those storytelling factors, and I think that's driven by the fact that the success is being found in such kind of storytelling. So I think that's something that is still a common theme that I see. In terms of evolving content spaces, I think the overall look and feel of content is certainly evolved. There is a lot of urbanization. There's a lot of high quality production. And what I see right now in the last 5 years, but specifically, is thanks to social media and online video, is shorter format content is catching a lot of flavor with the Indian audience. They're predominantly mobile consuming content, right? Because the 15 to 34 segment is fundamentally consuming content on mobile. Shorter the better. There is this key factor of attention span that every social media platform is trying to capture, or a content creator is trying to capture, and so short formats have come into play in a big way. The second thing that we've seen is the creator universe itself has expanded. Right, today, anybody who's got a mobile phone and half an imagination can create a piece of content which has an audience that consumes it and gives it the right kind of acknowledgement in the form of likes and follows and whatever else. So I think thanks to very early on YouTube and Facebook, and then after that TikTok and all the other short form players who've now come into this fray, it has given emergence to this whole new pool of creators. So you don't need to look upon only professional creators to create content, but it's a very, very wide world out there. And I think user generated content has now come of age. It's almost become like a professionally generated content, a term that we use as a hybrid term called PUGC, professionally user-generated content. So a lot of the creators over a period of time have now got a bit of finesse in terms of the way they shoot, their storytelling, the lighting, everything around, getting better production value. So I think it's a very encouraging sign and a lot of opportunities for content creators in the ecosystem right now.
Okay. But Nikhil, again, taking from your experience with TikTok, we have seen global social media players, be that a Facebook, be that an Instagram, be that TikTok, they have been taking the ruling positions. While there have been some Indian players around now, some who have been even copying what the West has been doing, but do you see India ever take top position?
Oh yes, certainly. I think firstly, I think the audience and the opportunity in India is humongous, right? That's the biggest attraction for a lot of people from the West or wherever else that they come from. So there's no doubt about the fact that the 500 million smartphone users is there for people to grab. I think what's important is to see the innovation in the space that you want to operate in. I think that's an area that is a great area of development for India. Uh, most of the most of the spaces are, I would say, Me Too, except for a lot of the other spaces where there are original. I mean, there are a lot of other places where we have startups and founders who have done a lot of very interesting stuff. But I think in spaces like you mentioned of social media or short format video or even OTT, I think we have some way to go as far as bringing in a sophisticated AI and ML technology to see great wins as far as those spaces are concerned. And so I think the space is certainly there, but I do certainly believe that there is opportunity for all the Indian apps to grab that on and see success in the years to come.
Can you name? Can you tell me who are the next promising apps from India you think can make it there? Do you have some names in mind?
Well, I think if I have to give you a name, it'll be jumping the gun. But I think from whatever I have interacted with many founders and investors, as well as many app owners and executives who are running those places, I see a great amount of promise. It'll be hard to call out a name right now, but I see that there are a few front runners and amongst the people who are operating in the short space, and it'll be shortchanging them to give out names right now because everybody has the potential. So it's very early to say who's going to win and who's not going to win.
I think sometime back on LinkedIn, I happened to see this post of yours where you spoke about mentoring startups, advising startups, and the startup space of India in general. But tell me something. The one problem that we see that the startup space in India constantly is that while there might be funding, there might be innovation too, but still more startups still continue to fail than make it to the finish line. Why is that happening? How can this rate go down? Any learnings?
Yeah. So see, I'll tell you. I think in it's a great point because a lot of the times that startups fail is a learning curve. I don't necessarily see it, and it happens everywhere in the world. It's not like every company is a success. But what is important is what do you learn out of the failure, and what do you do next is extremely critical. I think my worry is not about the startups failing. My worry is about the startups not doing enough after the failure, right? But I do see there are some people who have pivoted into different dimensions and different directions. But I think that's the starting point of innovation, right? Your failure will teach you lessons to learn for the long run. And my concern is that if you don't learn from those failures, then you are up for some bigger trouble in the months to come and in the years to come for your next venture, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is in my experience, especially during the times, especially in the challenging times of COVID, I have seen some of the startups going after tactical wins, and I think the the vision of the founders need to be pivoting into what do I do in this new environment that has got set? Are my consumers changing real, tectonic behavior towards my service or my product, right? And I think if you take initiatives to go into that direction, you might not see that kind of failure or that kind of setback that you might expect during these challenging times. And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed also in my mentoring to them. I've told them that, don't go after tactical wins that might just keep your home fires burning for the moment, because you might see a bigger challenge, going forward.
However, the leadership point in startups versus what happens in major media conglomerates, which have a larger kitty, there could be a difference in that, right? So, what would your advice be to these startups who, at the end of the day, are trying to be the next maybe Amazons of the world?
I mean, if I've understood your question correctly, it's you're asking me about leadership at startups, right? I think fundamentally leadership at a startup is a bit different from leadership at you working for a conglomerate or a corporate, because at a certain level, at a startup you believe this is your money, your time, your investment at your own terms. But I think there's a big, I would say, meeting of the minds that should happen, and convergence that should happen, that a corporate should start thinking like a owner, and founder should start thinking like a corporate, and thereby build in processes and systems so that there is a great amount of sophistication on one side, and on the other side, corporates and leadership at the corporate level should bring in or inculcate the ambition of being entrepreneurial with their teams and their structures. So I think that is something that will gain on both sides. For startups, it's all the more important that if they are thinking big in terms of going up to scales of some of the bigger players, they need to adopt and adapt some of the key processes, key disciplines, and then go by if they are very clear about the promise that their product or the service is offering, keep consistently driving it, and keep the passion and the commitment alive for them to attract big monies in the future.
Let me give you one example. Now, what we see is whenever we go to colleges, students are very interested in the startup culture. They want to become entrepreneurs early on. So, just for example, there could be this BSc biotechnology, kid who wants to possibly launch his own restaurant. He has a fantastic idea, but he does not have the right means to it, in the sense he doesn't have a team, he doesn't have the finances. What would your advice be to that student who has a fantastic idea but doesn't know how to, make way through it?
Well, in my experience, ideas are not enough. The real meat is in the execution, and that's what most of the investors will look for. I think one is that if you don't have domain expertise of an idea that you want to launch, you need to ask yourself 500 questions. One is fundamentally, is my idea innovative enough or disruptive enough for it to attract the right kind of talent on one side, the right kind of consumers on the other side, and the right kind of investors on the third side, right? So if it's ticking all of these boxes, then I think your idea per se is quite exciting. Two is, if you are not of that domain, then I think you must acknowledge that fact and stick to the domain that you are expert at. That it could be business, it could be marketing, it could be branding, it could be sales, finance, whatever else, right? And so in a restaurant business, fundamentally what you need to have is a great chef. You need to have the right kind of cuisine, you need to have the right kind of people running the show, and it's an F&B business, so you need to acquire the right kind of talent. But a talent that you acquire need to believe in your idea, they need to believe in what you want to bring out, and thereby you need to give them what they are going to do and what you are going to do in return, and give them the right kind of empowerment for them to run that show along with you, right? So I think ideas are always good, ideas are always welcome, but the execution, again, is the real meat is in the execution.
Also, with the number of social media platforms that we see today, be that TikTok or be that Instagram, we have seen a surge in the number of content creators, which of course gave way to influencers. I want to ask you that with this vast number of influencers, the influencer army, do you think influencers will finally replace celebrities, or do you think it will reach a stage where there will be a saturation? Eventually, influencer marketing tends to die down with time.
Well, I think that influencers replacing celebrity. I don't think necessarily that is a phenomenon that is going to happen ever. I think you know influencers will reach a certain amount of scale depending on their talent and the way they manage uh, their overall presence on social. I think there's a lot of fake and faulty influencers that I have also experienced, where people are trying to do all sorts of things to generate followers and likes, etc. Whereas the engagement levels are pretty hollow as far as their own profile is concerned. So I think where my issue is that influencers at the top will certainly, and they have already become celebrities in their own right. I think the entire celeb pool will grow. Earlier we had celebrities who were fundamentally from Bollywood. Now you have and then you had celebrities who are from the sports arena, fundamentally from cricket. Now you have celebrities from all walks of life, right? And thanks to social, because it has given rise to a lot of people who have a mind, a lot of people who have talent, and I think that has now become a thing of the past, that there are only a few bunch of of course there are iconic celebrities and different classes, but I think there is a great amount of opportunity for influencers to up their game and go up the right channel in the right format to reach up to that celebrity level.
Now, a lot of our conversation today has been about transformations in different arenas. You have a transformation story with your fitness, which we have heard about, which has been spoken about, and I remember in Times Network there was a lot of talk about it. So, can you tell me a little about that? Because anybody who can transform his health can definitely transform his life. That's a personal belief that I have. So, can you tell me more about that story?
Oh yes, it's something which is very close to my heart. I think it came and embarked upon me much later in my life. I wish I had done it much before, but nevertheless, I think I was between assignments, between Disney and Times, and there was a 3 to 4 month gardening period again, and my daughter was all of I think about 1.5 2 years. This is in 2017, and I went to lift her up, and I couldn't lift her up because I got a catch in my back. I was all of 104 kilos, and I thought to myself that at this age of and juncture of my life, if I can't spend active time with my daughter, then what am I doing, and why am I even doing all that I'm doing, right? And that eureka moment just had a great click. Before that, I had tried all sorts of diets. I mean, I was an avid gymmer, but I was an avid eater as well. But I then chanced upon this a great transformational program that really set me driving to getting to the goal that I am supposed to be at. I lost 30 kilos in 6 months, and that really transformed the way I started looking at life. It not just transformed me physically, but it transformed me mentally. Right? I think a lot of what people believe about their diets as well as their health and fitness is a lot more mental than what it is physical. I think if you get that formula right, there's a lot to achieve for people in the future.
And going by the same transformation element, who do you think are today in the startup world, in the entrepreneurial world of India, changing the space? If you could name 3 entrepreneurs who you think are doing the most incredible job That's true.
Oh, there are many. There's not just three. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who I get inspired by. I think, of course, you have some of the big boys who were in the space who've gone and broken out into scale that you'd not imagine. There are the Baijus and the Pansals who did Flipkart and all of that. And I think that's a very inspiring story when it comes to emulating what people have done in the West, etc. But I think every second day when I read the papers or if I catch up with some news, I read about some interesting stuff that some of the new age startups are doing. I was reading about this company called Zerodha, where they've just, I mean, what I read just blew me away that they are working at a 40-45% margin. The founders are now looking forward to a great valuation. And some of the some of the players are just disrupting and innovating at a whole new level. And in my experience, that I'm talking to founders every day, I don't see scale. I don't judge a founder or a startup by the scale that is achieved. I think what I judge them is by their honesty, transparency, and their disruption of the innovation. And I think as long as you have those, you will succeed. So many founders and startups have really inspired me.
But could you name 2 or 3 of them? Do you think like yes, these are the guys?
Well, if you ask me, really, the man that the one founder that no one looked upon him as a startup was Ronnie. He came up from scratch. I worked with him very closely, and of course, way back in the day, his company got a valuation of 1 billion, which was sold to the Walt Disney Company. I think that was, in my opinion, and of course, after that, he's gone on to building Upgrad and all the other things that he's doing. So, extremely inspiring. I have also seen the work that the Bansals have done for Flipkart. So I think there's Baiju's, there's all of those. But I think these other guys who are now in the fray. Uh, the other day I saw another app called Trade Cred. Very interesting. I forgot the name of the founder. Very interesting. And again, very disruptive. So I think what I liked about it that is that the thought itself, that no one thought of doing this and this guy thought of it, and so he's created something very interesting. Yeah, so I think I don't have like one name. There are many who inspired me differently.
Okay, okay. My final question to you is that at this juncture of life, where you have already been at the leadership helm of so many interesting organizations from media to TikTok, are there any 2 global entrepreneurs who you would like to be mentored by at this stage? Would you name 2?
Oh yes, oh yes. I mean, I feel that some of the entrepreneurs who are old school are also have their thought process very clearly etched out. And I think what I see consistently is that they know what they're doing, or they believe in what they're doing. Right. So there's Warren Buffett, I think, is who's done such a phenomenal job with his organization. I think Elon Musk, extremely disruptive, never ceases to amaze me with the stuff that he does. Going into a whole new dimension with his innovation and with his products. Uh, and interestingly, the company I worked for, which is TikTok, the founder there, Yiming Zhang, extremely inspiring. I think his humility, his vision, his style, his talent is very very inspiring. So I think these are the few names that I have. There are a lot more, but I think for now I can give you these 3.
No, it doesn't come as a surprise because whenever I ask this question, Elon Musk is always in the list.
Well, yes, I think there's no surprise there for me too. I find him very intriguing. I find his style extremely different. And I love his confidence and his conviction. I think he seems to be knowing something in the unknown, which is what is interesting about him.
Absolutely. Nikhil, as you get ready for your next venture, thank you so much for taking time for Daydreamers with Himika. We will wait for the big announcement soon, which I believe is somewhere around in the next 1 month or what, few weeks.
Well, yes, I am in my gardening zone right now. So until mid of August, I am not going to be taking up anything. So I'm using this time now probably for another kind of transformation. But Himika, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Until then, maybe startups can take a lot of mentoring and advice from you, hopefully. Thanks.
Thank you. Look forward.